If you're into intense action dramas, the kind built around brutal combat, great emotional performances from the cast, and constant high-stakes tension, then The Last Samurai Standing may be the show for you. It's a series that looks like a period epic on the surface, but once you start watching, it moves with the pacing and pressure of a modern survival thriller. It mixes grounded sword fighting with emotionally driven performances, and the show absolutely knows how to keep you engaged and wanting more. But at the same time, there are some clear issues. The overall story is very similar in style to that of the Squid Game show or a battle royale structure, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but at the same time, it's also very familiar. And while the action is undeniably incredible, there are moments with the story that simply don't work, like magical plot armor and various nonsensical decisions. So let's break it all down: what works, what doesn't, and whether the series stands out or simply stands alongside better versions of the same idea. The story is set in late 19th century Japan after the fall of the samurai class. The country is modernizing fast, leaving thousands of former warriors with no status or work. To make matters even worse, a cholera outbreak is tearing through villages, leaving entire communities devastated in its wake. In the middle of this chaos, an opportunity appears, a competition that offers a massive cash prize. Nearly 300 fighters voluntarily enter the competition, seeking the prize money, later finding out that it's a fight to the death, with one simple rule: travel from Kyoto to Tokyo and survive by claiming other competitors' tags before they lose their own. This isn't government sanctioned. These people chose to enter because they're desperate for money or a reason to simply keep going. As the journey unfolds, alliances form and every duel pushes the remaining fighters closer to the final prize. It's a straightforward setup, similar to the theme of Squid Game. Think of it as a samurai-themed survival game. This show delivers some of the best sword fighting that I've seen in years. The fights are fast, brutal, and bloody, aimed at mature audiences, instead of being toned down to cater to more people. There's no over-the-top editing, instead they are well choreographed, without the many quick camera shots that dominate so many fight scenes now. Whether it's one-on-one duels, chaotic multi-fighter skirmishes, traditional bow and arrows, or modern firearms, the action always feels intense and purposeful, not just thrown in for spectacle. But the show wouldn't work without strong performances to anchor all that violence, and the cast brings a lot to the table. You can see their motivations for fighting, born through poverty and disease, or in some cases, just for the fun of it. The emotional stakes feel real, especially for a handful of central characters who manage to stand out in the chaos. The story in Last Samurai Standing works surprisingly well, even if the concept is one that we've seen before. What really carries it is the execution. The acting gives every moment emotional weight, and the brutal, grounded fight scenes keep the narrative constantly moving. But it's also the way the series presents these characters that makes the premise land. You see the desperation that drives them into the competition, the poverty, the loss of status, the personal tragedies, and that makes their choices feel believable rather than forced. There's also an ongoing mystery that adds real momentum: why the competition exists, who's controlling it, and what's happening behind the scenes. The show never dumps exposition on you. It lets the bigger picture unfold through hints and shadows, which keeps you hooked even when the structure clearly echoes other survival game stories like Squid Game. So no, the narrative doesn't reinvent the genre, but it doesn't need to. The concept is executed well, the emotional stakes feel real, and the mystery surrounding the competition adds just enough intrigue to keep you fully invested from start to finish. When it comes to what doesn't work, the biggest issue is the world building, or rather, the lack of it. The show puts almost all of its focus on the characters and their individual struggles, which isn't a bad approach, but it means the setting never feels as rich or as culturally grounded as it could. In fact, you could lift this exact story, drop it into medieval Europe, keep the poverty, the disease, and the deadly competition, and very little would change. There just isn't much that roots the narrative deeply in Japanese history or gives the Kodoku tournament a unique cultural identity. And without spoiling anything, I did take issue with a few of the story decisions. Some characters feel protected by heavy plot armor that keeps them alive long past what the situation logically allows. A handful of moments left me thinking, that doesn't make sense, and those lapses definitely pulled me out of the experience. It doesn't derail the show, but it does stop the story from hitting as hard as it could have. So overall, Last Samurai Standing isn't a perfect series. The world building is thin, some story choices don't quite land, and the premise covers very familiar territory, but despite those flaws, it's still an undeniably entertaining watch. The action is fantastic, the performances are strong, and the tension keeps you engaged all the way through. If you enjoy survival-style dramas or gritty, character-driven action, it's absolutely worth giving a try.